Do you like Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, man.
Oh, shucky dang darn.
Oh, fart nuggets.
Oh, fart nuggets. Just someday YouTube, like, real life Quidditch, and it's just fun to watch.
Oh, God.
It's just fun to watch.
Like LARP Quidditch?
Yeah, basically. They're just like galloping around. It's
Going to air.
Stand by film.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by announce.
3, 2, 1.
And fade up.
All aboard! And a name on the front is a hell of a lot more important than the one on the back.
Don't act like you're not impressed.
Turn to page 394.
How much you want to make a bet I can throw a football over their mouth?
That is so fetch.
Dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge.
The power of the sun in the palm of my hand.
Where's my super suit?
Hey, fat lard, come get some dinner.
Well,
I am not drinking any f***ing Merlot.
And I'm going to try to forget the fact that you're a girl.
But dogs can look up.
Oh, durga.
you tell me what I saw this woman?
This is the Polar Express.
all right. Well, welcome, everyone, to a brand new episode of 20 Years 4 Beers. We are a podcast dedicated to re-watching movies from at least 2 decades ago, while simultaneously enjoying a minimum of 4 modern beers. My name is Steve, and this is my big brother,
Tim.
and we are coming to you from Minneapolis, Minnesota. In this episode, we will be taking some flu powder, taking a magical trip back to the Wizarding World, and we'll be watching, or rewatching rather, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. Fans of our show, and there are so many of you,
Indeed.
will note that while we covered the first Harry Potter film 3 years ago, we avoided Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets because we largely try to cover films that we like this one. So before we start, though, we typically take a few moments to discuss any new movies or television that we have watched recently. What do you got, Tim? Any?
The biggest one that I saw was The Creator.
Yeah.
That came out, I want to say September of last year.
Yep, it was September.
I was very excited to see it in the theater. Just didn't get around to it.
Yeah, we wanted to. We tried, and then
It's like,
and then admittedly the reviews started coming out, and you're kind of like, oh, maybe it's not okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Did you watch it?
I did.
I was so impressed with the execution of it.
Sure.
In terms of them blending, and I watched the making of, like, it. You clearly saw they were filming it in the world.
Yes.
That it wasn't CGI, like computer, like like a set.
There's plenty of graphics, but yeah, it's not a green screen
them blending
full set. Yeah.
The digital effects in the real world was incredible.
Yeah.
And I would love to see more movies do what they did.
Yep.
Overall, unfortunately, I felt like the emotional stuff was really trying, and you're like, it's not working. It
was forced.
Which is hard for me to say, is like, I'm a sucker for movies about like kids in peril. Of course, it's artificial intelligence, but that's what they're going for. But man, a lot of the stuff was heavy-handed. And I was like, yikes, the mother, father stuff. I was like, okay. I laughed at times. But the execution overall, I was very impressed, but I was very disappointed.
Yeah, I watched it as well. Obviously, I agree. Again, I guess, spoiler alert, I don't think anyone's going to, but I had a huge problem with them forcing in this connection between Washington, I can't remember his John David or whatever it is.
I forget his name.
Washington.
Joshua.
He was very good.
Yeah.
But like forcing this connection that it was not his kid, but like modeled after
proxy,
embryo or whatever. And I was just like, at no point did I care about anybody.
No.
Anybody.
No.
And that's what bothers me is it's the idea of it.
Yeah.
That AI is not trying to take over the world, but find its place in this world.
Yes.
Is really interesting.
Yes.
It's not a big bad that's trying to just kill everybody or whatever. I love that idea, and they didn't go anywhere with that. And I felt like this movie should have been in 2 parts, if not a 10-part miniseries kind of a thing.
Sure.
Because you could have had the lead up to the bomb and have the bomb be a la like Rogue One or whatever, like at the end, and you don't know what's happening. Like, you give me this world building, you give me the people, you give me the backstory. And then the second movie is everything after that. And this movie was one, and they tried to tell those backstories along the way, but you don't care about anybody along the way.
Yeah.
And I really feel like it would have been, especially as a long form series, give me some of that caring. And I would have cared about the AI. I would have cared about these characters who were, all they wanted to do was just save themselves and find themselves a place on the world. But I didn't care about anybody.
Yeah.
Allison Janney, I mean, I didn't care about her, and I love her, and she wasn't even that good of a bad guy. I mean, it was disappointing.
It was definitely,
but visually really impressive.
And the making of said they had like, I guess, a 5-hour initial cut because of how much they wanted to film.
Right. It could have been
how much it could have been cool. But to cut down, but basically 2 hours long, it's like there was moments where I was like, did that just how'd that edit? Yeah, it was very disappointing.
Yep.
And then I've watched random other crap, but
yeah, I did. I watched The Creator, and then I finished The Color Purple, the musical. It's a musical, not an all new movie experience like they, advertised for. I was disappointed in that one as well. Not in the performances. Fantasia Barrino, I'm suddenly blanking on her name. I didn't write it down. The supporting actress nominee from this year.
Sure.
And then Coleman Domingo is outstanding. Like, the performances are really cool, but same kind of thing with The Creator. The story is kind of disjointed along the way. Yep. It's really, and because it's a stage musical and because they avoid a lot of the really, really heavy parts of the book.
Oh, sure.
And the storyline, it's definitely there, but there's a lot more that they bypass there. And it just isn't, it's not that great. I would recommend people seeing it if you like musicals and you want to see it. But we mentioned this off air, but I'll just rant about it real quick. It bothers me right now that movie musicals are not embracing the fact that they're movie musicals.
Sure.
It is frustrating because guess what, folks? When it's released, it's gonna be an effing musical. Like, just because you don't advertise for it doesn't mean it's not gonna be a musical.
Exactly.
And you're lying to people at that point. Like, it's like releasing a trailer that doesn't, like we've talked about in the past, like the marketing for a movie is really bad. They marketed it really bad. It marketed as this, but it's this. Same thing. You're lying to the American public.
Yes.
Mean Girls did it. Color Purple did it. Wicked's doing it right now. Wonka was also a pretty decent musical.
Wonka was not
and you're like, it's just stop it.
Yep.
Wonka, I kind of understood because you are tapping into a all-time sort of classic IP and that kind of thing. I can kind of understand that. And it's a kid's movie. You can kind of get away with that because there's musicals that are cartoons or musicals, obviously.
Sure.
But beyond that, it really bothered me. So I would recommend Color Purple to people who like musicals. But if you're not into it at all, Ellen, it's just not. It's just not good. And in that sense, it's not a great movie, but it's a fine musical.
Gotcha.
So.
Good to know.
Top 5 side ones, track ones.
We begin our episodes with our first segment, High Fidelity.
Now, the making of a good compilation tape is a very subtle art.
This is where we take a common theme from our subject film and each pick our top 5 choices within that subject. This is High Fidelity.
Now get your patchouli stick out of my store! Move it, lard ass!
Since we are covering a film that features some time travel, or time manipulation, if you will, we are going to offer up our top 5 films that involve some sort of time manipulation. Tim, start us off with your number 5.
I watched this. It was actually when we were thinking about what should we cover.
And
I was like, ooh,
I had some honorable mentions even.
Ooh. I think I have a few. I just happened to watch it with the kids last week because they were curious on it. Live, Die, Repeat Edge of Tomorrow.
No, it's Edge of Tomorrow. Yeah.
Whichever one you want to go
It's Edge
with.
of Tomorrow. That's the name of the movie.
Right.
That's what was released.
But even
I don't care how you rebrand the DVD. It's Edge of
Repeat's
Tomorrow.
a better one. Anyway, I love it. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The kids loved it. And I forgot how incredible it is from an execution of the resetting every single day once he dies.
Yep.
And it's like probably the best version of a video game without it being a video game.
Yeah. Yeah.
That vibe and that feel of how you can adapt. I love it. It's
that Groundhog Day style of things.
Exactly. Loved it.
My number 5, I hesitated. I had a few that are honorable mentions that I kind of wanted to put ahead of this, but I think time will remember it better. I have Tenet as number 5.
Ooh.
I didn't love it the first time around, and then rewatching it, I liked it better. And I kind of wanted to try and get it to it. It's an IMAX this week.
Sure.
The next week it's an IMAX, but it'd be kind of fun to see it how it was meant to be seen.
Yeah.
But I love Tenet. The execution is really good. That forwards and backwards at the same, like
and
being
the
able
fight
to
sequence.
Yeah,
Oh.
like just from an execution standpoint, I kind of had to put Tenet at number 5.
I was torn on that one as well. Really, really good choice. Number 4 for me was Palm Springs. And there's this
I
special.
finally watched that last year. It took me forever to watch it.
Oh God.
Yeah.
When it came out during, I think, the height of the pandemic.
Yeah. Yep.
I was floored by it.
Yeah.
I love the idea of that time loop caught in it.
Yeah.
But you're caught in it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And I have an affinity for Groundhog Day, and that might be an honorable mention for me.
Yeah.
But it's really skeezy and kind of creepy at times.
Yeah.
And I like Bill Murray, but it's like it wears thin for me.
Yeah.
I loved the vibrancy of Palm Springs with the two of them trying to figure out how to get out of this, and it's fantastic. So if you haven't seen it, I love it.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Loved it. Yep.
Yeah, again, those are two that I would have. Well, I mean, we'll get to that. But my number 4 is 12 Monkeys.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that one.
Yeah, I was thinking about like and just from an execution standpoint, I love a good time movie that recognizes, like Harry Potter and Azkaban, which is not on my list, but it recognizes that, like, the paradox of people going back in time and they're experiencing the same thing and it doesn't change. Like, that sort of understanding that what I'm experiencing going forward doesn't change, even though you do try and go back to change it, or all this other stuff. And 12 Monkeys is an outstanding movie. I love it.
I absolutely forgot about that.
Yep.
Nice. That's a great one. Number 3 for me is Looper.
Yeah, that's an honorable mention for me. Yep.
I was floored by it when it came out.
Yep.
And the premise of, the idea that time travel, most movies set it at the time but the time travel is invented, but it's set in a current, if you will, time where it has been invented, but it's invented in the future.
Right.
And it's instantly outlawed, but the bad folks are going to manipulate it and use it and get rid of people they want to kill.
Yeah.
Genius premise.
Yeah.
And
time
what happens?
travel being like the Jersey rivers, or what
it is.
Like
it's like
that's all
the
it
mafia use it, and Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Bruce Willis are so great as a younger and older version trying to kill each other.
Yep,
it's incredible. Just blown away. And another Emily Blunt,
2 Emily Blunt movies
in there. But yeah, that was one for me. Number 3.
I have an Emily Blunt movie. I have Edge of Tomorrow.
Nice.
Yep, number 3. I don't want to say flawless, but it's so good. I don't need to add on what you said. Edge of Tomorrow is on mine. Yes. I love it.
It's mind-blowing. So good. Number 2 for me is Back to the Future.
Yeah, I know what your number 1 is then.
Yeah.
I think we're back and forth here.
That one and the original. I have an affinity for the second and third.
Yeah.
The original, and it holds up. And it's
2 and 3
fantastic.
Yeah.
And it's it was just a difference. You think back to 85 when it came out? Yeah. It just changed everything. So
yeah. My number 2, and I assume your number 1 is Everything Everywhere All at Once.
No.
Oh, Everything Everywhere All at Once is my 2.
Oh, that's a good one.
From a time manipulation standpoint. And it's probably more universe manipulation, not necessarily time manipulation, but same kind of idea, like jumping back and forth.
Yep.
I counted it as a manipulation kind of a thing.
It's so
I went with Everything Everywhere All at Once.
And I remember when that came out, I didn't see it until the end of the year, and I was like, this has to win Best Picture.
Yeah, that's although I wanted something else to win personally, I also knew that would win, but because I was like, it's got to win. So I went with that. I was a little bit of a stretch in terms of time manipulation, but I think it's got that same feel as any of the other ones, like Edge of Tomorrow, like jumping back and forth. But I don't know. So maybe I cheated, but that's what I went with.
No, I like that. That's why you chose manipulation, not so much
I was
travel.
yep.
Terminator 2 Judgment Day.
Yeah.
That
was an honorable mention for me.
I saw that before mom and dad were like cool with us. I mean, it was 92.
Mm-hmm.
And so
yeah.
I was watching it at a friend's house and was terrified by the T-1000. I didn't sleep that night. I was like, and I just think back, again, a formative thing. It's so good. And how he develops Cameron on the first. And the first still holds up.
Yeah, first is good. Yeah.
Terminator is really good.
Yep.
But the second one and making Sarah Connor the badass she is, and now the bad guy is the good, like the protector. Incredible. I love that one.
Yeah. I have a time travel movie. Mine's Back to the Future.
Yeah.
I think Back to the Future is one of the only perfect films.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, not in necessarily execution, but even then, I think the attention to detail is really good. Back to the Future to me is just how, like, we've talked about this. We talked about this at my Big Fat Greek wedding and that kind of stuff. Is like, how could you not like this movie? Like, if somebody tells me they don't like Back to the Future, like, it was bad enough to hear that somebody in our lives didn't like Eternal Sunshine.
Yes.
That's okay, but I can kind of wrap my head around that. But if somebody tells me they don't like Back to the Future, I honestly think I would unfriend and be like,
I don't know that we...
How could you not like this movie? It is a perfect movie from front to end. The attention to detail at the beginning with the plutonium and all this other stuff, all the way to the end to the Single Pines Mall versus Twin Pines Mall.
Right.
Like I mean, come on. It's just, it's a
and
perfect
when the
movie.
dad balls his fist and punch out Biff.
Yeah.
It's just like, that scene is so epic.
Yep.
In terms of like, oh, my dad, anyway. It's so good.
All right.
Nice. I like that list. That's good.
There we go. Well, as we mentioned earlier, we will be rewatching 2004's Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. The film is the continued story of three best friends, Harry, Ron, and Hermione, as they navigate life at Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. As they go off to school, an evil wizard named Sirius Black escapes the wizard prison Azkaban and is on the hunt for Harry. Soon enough, Harry finds out a terrible secret and decides to seek out Black on his own, but finds out that not everything is as it would seem. The film is directed by Alfonso Cuarón, adapted from the J.K. Rowling novel by Steve Kloves, and stars Daniel Radcliffe, Rupert Grint, Emma Watson, Gary Oldman, David Thewlis, Michael Gambon, Alan Rickman, Maggie Smith, and Robbie Coltrane.
I am Professor Trelawney. Together we shall cast ourselves into the future. This time we shall be focusing on tessomancy, which is the art of reading tea leaves. So please take the cup of the person sitting opposite you. What do you see? The truth lies buried like a sentence deep within a book, waiting to be read. But first, you must broaden your minds. First, you must look beyond.
What a load of rubbish.
Where did you come from?
Me? Been here all this time.
You, boy? Is your grandmother quite well?
I think so.
I wouldn't be so sure of that. Give me the cup. Oh, pity. Broaden your minds. Oh, your aura is pulsing, dear. Are you in the beyond? I think you are.
Sure.
Look at the cup. Tell me what you see.
Oh, yeah, well, Harry's got sort of a wonky cross. That's trials and suffering. And that there could be the sun, and that's happiness. So, you're gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
Give me the cup. Oh, my dear boy. My dear. You have the grin.
The grin? What's the grin? Not the grin, you idiot. The grim. Taking form of a giant spectral dog. It's among the darkest omens in our world. It's an omen of death.
If you guys were the inventors of Facebook, you'd have invented Facebook.
This is a social network.
You don't have to be an intellectual property expert to understand the difference between right and wrong.
Where we take a look back at the critical and fan reception from 2 decades ago.
Mark!
As usual, Tim takes point on this, so take it away, Tim.
You better lawyer up, asshole, because I'm not coming back for 30%. I'm coming back for everything. $1 billion.
The IMDb rating is 7.9 out of 10.
Nice.
Very high for the ones we've watched. Richard Roper of Ebert and Roper from the time said, even if you've never read a word of the Potter book and haven't seen the first 2 films, Azkaban stands alone as a creative triumph. Nicole Arthur of Washington Post said, the third installment in the Harry Potter series, Azkaban, is everything the first 2 films were not. Complex, frightening, and nuanced. I love it. Big Man Roger.
What did Ebert give? 3?
3.5 out of 5.
Right. That's probably because of Quaron.
But it's a weird thing where he's like, Azkaban is not quite as good as the first 2 films. So, wrong.
What?
But as it doesn't have the sense of joyously leaping through a clockwork plot, and it needs to explain more than it should. But the world of Harry Potter remains delightful, amusing, and sophisticated, weaving the 3 heroes into a rich tapestry of character performances by an incredible and expanding cast. Academy Awards that year, it was up for 2 nominations for Best Visual Effects and, shocking, Best Original Score by John Williams.
I love the score.
It's really good.
Mischief Managed at the end of this, the ending credits of this, I want to listen to the whole thing.
Ooh.
I love it.
We will.
I love it.
Nice.
It's awesome. Yeah, not a shot because none of these movies won an Oscar. So there you go.
It's crazy.
All right. Well, there we go. We are going to pause and rewatch our movie. If you are so inclined, go right ahead and watch along with us. If not, we will see you on the other side of this break. Here now is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
If you want to kill Harry, you'll have to kill us too.
No, only one would die tonight.
Then it'll be you!
Are you going to kill me, Harry?
Expelliarmus!
Well, Sirius, looking rather ragged, aren't we? Finally, the flesh reflects the madness within.
Well, you'd know all about the madness within, wouldn't you, Remus?
I found him. I know. It's him. I understand.
Let's kill him.
No! I trusted you! And all this time, you've been his friend. He's a werewolf. That's why he's been missing classes.
How long have you known?
Since Professor Snape said the essay.
Well, Hermione, you really are the brightest witch of your age I've ever met.
Enough talk, Remus. Come on, let's kill him.
Wait!
I did my waiting. 12 years of it in Azkaban.
All right, well, welcome back to 20 Years, 4 Beers, where we have just finished rewatching Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. And I've also had 4 new beers that we will review in a segment coming up. So with Spotlight getting started, we have some special guests with us who decided to watch along with us. So Tim, who do we have with us here?
We said, you know what? We have an opportunity this evening with a movie like this. And we are enjoying these, but also we're not really the primary demographic.
No, not really.
And we happen to have 2 guests tonight.
That's right.
Who are much more of, I think, the primary demographic. My daughter, Audrey, and son, Everett. Would you like to say hi?
Hi.
You can just, talk.
Hi.
Nice. Hello. Well, I have one question for you that I think we want to understand, because you've seen these before, correct?
Yeah.
And as we watched, you're like, oh my gosh, I don't remember this. I forgot all this. It's been a while.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about what you like most about Harry Potter movies.
I kind of like the CGI and how it's so well planned where you can believe it because it's realistic. But then also, like, they do a good job of making it magical. So then you're kind of like, oh yeah, I can see how that could happen. But then also, it's like, oh yeah, that's realistic, or wow. So,
So it's what the movies do really well is take something that's in your head because you've read the books,
yes,
almost all of them, and it takes what you have imagined and put it on screen really well.
Yes,
I like that. Nice. Thank you, Audrey. It's good. Everett, would you like to add any thoughts around the movies?
I don't really know.
You don't really know? You
Yeah.
did take a break halfway through, feeling like, I'm not really feeling it.
I did watch more parts though.
You did. You did a good job with it. Do you like Harry Potter?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, buddy. This is great.
There we go. Any other thoughts before you guys go to bed?
Yeah, it's pretty late.
I want to do more.
I know.
No.
Well, we have future movies. Maybe we could have
we'll have
additional
other ones.
guests.
I'm sure we'll have other animated movies that we could watch or something.
Oh, we
like
do
that
have
too.
some of those. I'm happy that we're able to watch it together, guys.
Yeah.
All right. Good night.
Then also, I like this one specifically because, with Sirius Black, you would never expect that for the main prisoner to be one of Harry's godfathers.
Sure.
Not a lot of movies do
It's
that.
a twist.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
It's like, what? What?
Yeah.
And then also I like how it has more animals in it and more kind of around animals.
Sure.
You do love
Buckbeak.
animals.
Yeah.
You know?
You got the frogs, when they're singing.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the Patronus. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good point about this
Stag.
movie.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you for that.
We begin our discussion with our reaction segment that we call Spotlight.
This is Boston, and the church does not want them to be found. So, they are not there.
This is where we highlight and discuss our top takeaways of any kind from rewatching our subject film.
We've got two stories here. We've got a story about degenerate clergy, and we've got a story about a bunch of lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
If there were 90 of these bastards, people would know.
Maybe they do.
This is Spotlight.
They knew, and they let it happen.
You ready?
And we're back.
Yeah, you want to go first?
So I started reading the books
Yeah.
after the fourth film.
Okay.
Because I remember watching the Goblet of Fire being like, there's way more going on than I'm seeing as a movie enjoyer person. That's really, really,
yeah.
me feel English. That's impossible.
Wow.
But I do remember seeing Prisoner of Azkaban.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember thinking, now I see the appeal of the books.
Yeah.
Because I had the first one was fine. The second one was terrible.
Yeah.
And this, I'm like, the appeal of the characters, the world, the story, everything about kind of that fervor of Harry Potter, I had no concept of. And this was the first okay, now I can see it.
Nice.
And so I think after seeing them all and then watching it again, and as I mentioned before with the kids, we watched them with them. This movie for me is my hands down favorite of all the Harry Potter movies.
Yeah.
And I think it's a serendipitous combination of a director's vision expanding the world with the complexity of the story that J.K. Rowling had put together. And so to me, I thoroughly love this movie. Yeah. It's a fantastic Harry Potter film, as well as just a fun fantasy and cool mystery and the time manipulation. So I love it.
Yeah. So I read all the books in a 2-week span before the 7th book came out.
Wow.
So whatever, and that was the 5th movie, I think.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was like, all right, I just gotta do it,
Yep.
So I was working at Barnes and Noble, and I was like, all right, I could be working at a bookstore without having read those. So I agree. I don't know if this is I go back and forth between this movie 4 and 6 as my favorites, actually, which 6 is a little bit more of a hot take in terms of being the favorite. Half-Blood Prince.
It's really good.
And yeah, as I've gotten older, I've enjoyed it even more. But it kind of depends. This to me is the last of the kid friendly or kid versions of Harry Potter.
True.
Everything after this I think this movie gets praised for being darker.
Yeah.
But it's really not, especially when you know what comes later.
Yeah.
It's really not as dark. I mean, it is darker for sure, but I think that almost gives it a bad rap. In terms of you maybe think it's scary, or little kids like Ev and they
He was under the blanket for a bit. Yeah.
Excuse me. But for the most part, it's not like that much darker.
No.
It doesn't delve into themes as much, but later on it gets into deeper themes. So I do love this movie. I remember buying this on VHS that summer. Fun fact, this is the last of them on VHS in America.
Sure, I could see that.
And but yeah, it's great. I love it.
I do like that point where everything hereafter is Voldemort centric.
Yes.
Where
the beginning of the next one is him in the
cabin or whatever, or the house. Look at us with our words tonight.
Yeah.
And so yes, I do feel like everything shifts book 4 and thereafter, which it had to at some point.
Yeah.
This has that cusp of still kid like, but I do feel like it elevates some of the adult feel of it. It does feel more grown up.
Yeah.
As these kids are, they're 13. They're not quite old enough, but it's really that sweet spot. So I agree. It's great. So I want to talk about the director.
Yeah.
Which we have a fond affinity for Alfonso Cuarón with his movies in many ways. But I do remember having no knowledge of this director prior to this movie.
Yeah.
In terms of he had done something, or a few things.
Mama Tambien?
That's true. Yes, that's what it was.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. It felt like the news was talking like, oh, they're bringing a new director. It's very different. And it definitely has a really great feel.
Mm-hmm.
The vision that is really respectful to what the first 2 movies built. Because I do think there's an affinity. And I think I respect Columbus for it took a lot to create this world.
In the first movie.
Right?
Yep.
But this takes it to the next level.
Yep.
And it feels grounded. I like the kids wearing their regular clothes. So it's not like they're always in the attire of the robes. Thank you.
Yep.
And so, it's really, really incredible. And I forgot how much of the movie, even though how'd you mention before the CGI, how much is still practical.
Yep.
With the monster book and some of the things that have to still be digital. But
but even the sets, they filmed a lot more on
everything
real sets.
Yes, it wasn't. There was no feeling of massive CGI or green screen stuff. And so, kudos to Cuarón with how he, I think, laid the foundation for how good the later movies are as well.
Yeah,
this is a massive shift in a good way.
Yeah, to me, my first point too is it's such a huge leap forward for the franchise. We talked about it in the first one. Chris Columbus deserves a lot of credit for building the foundation that the rest of the franchise was on or built off of. He actually signed on initially to direct all of them. His initial contract was to direct all Harry Potter films. And then after the second movie, he stepped down because he wanted to be with his family. He wanted to do, that kind of stuff. And so he stayed on as a producer for this film. And actually, this is the last one that he's even associated with the franchise. So he stepped down himself and felt and he did, I think to his credit, he felt like it needed a new sort of view and a new voice kind of a thing.
Sure.
So you got to give him credit there. It's
true.
He knew when, but for them to go from Chris Columbus, a very well established director, though we didn't quote know him, the movies that he had are clearly important over the 15 years prior to this.
Yes.
That for them to go from him to a very unknown Mexican independent filmmaker is a bold choice.
Absolutely.
And it pays off. Cuarón's vision is outstanding. I like that you noticed the costumes too. It was Cuarón's choice, and he told the kids that they could dress themselves. Here are your costumes, but now you dress.
That's great.
You dress as you would as your character. So that's why some kids are Seamus has his shirt untucked the whole time. Other kids are really well kept up. Some kids are in their robes all the time. I like that the robes were in the classrooms. That was the official school. Yeah. They still had to wear the robes there.
Yes.
But when they're just roaming the halls and stuff like that. And then, so some kids have their tie. Ron's always got his tie on, but it's got to be loose.
Yes.
He let the kids sort of be in their own characters. That's a huge director's choice. I think, Cuarón was absolutely the right choice. And then to move on to something else, for him to go into something else, and they bring in somebody else. And so, huge shift, huge leap forward for this franchise.
In wonderful ways. Exactly. And it wasn't a choice, but somewhat of a similar type of shift.
Yeah.
Is, and we've mentioned him other times before, Michael Gambon.
Yep.
As Dumbledore.
Yeah.
R.I.P. Richard Harris.
Yeah, totally.
Who was fine in the first.
Yep.
But as we would come to find out in later stories, Dumbledore still has to have a vibrancy to him.
Yes.
That Richard Harris was far too old.
Yeah.
In the first movie.
Yep.
Frail and kind of, I get they were looking for like the old wizard type of thing. Michael Gambon is fantastic as Dumbledore. And he, with his little winks to the kids and, again, spoiler, clearly knowing what's happening with the time turner stuff.
Yeah.
Handles it in such a great way where he's in on it, but not like I'm in on it type of thing. It's just like, here's what we're going to do. Like what really stood out to me was when he realizes, oh, we could still save 2 innocent lives, and turns around and says to Hermione, you know the laws. Like he becomes really focused as a like headmaster, but still isn't like serious.
Yeah.
It's this lighthearted of, here's the thing. And you just go 3 turns, see you after. It's effortless in what he does.
Yeah.
And he's so great in the movies after. But
yeah. I said it in the first movie too, is Michael Gambon is my Dumbledore. Like it is. And it has nothing to do with Richard Harris' performance. And you never wish or are happy that somebody has died. Like it's not, but yeah, very clearly where Rowling was going with this character, man, it would have been really rough. That like you almost felt like they would have had to recast him at some point.
They would have.
Especially if you get to 6 and he's actually out and about and doing more and more magic.
All his adventures.
Yep. Yeah. But I know John Williams gets a relatively bad rap for getting nominated for everything he does.
Sure.
Like we've joked about it, which is partially true. Like it's not his fault, by the way. Like he's not out there campaigning. To me, this is the best of the 3 Harry Potter scores.
Yeah.
Which means is by far and away the best of all of them.
Yes.
Of all 8 films. To like just like Quran, he takes what came before and improves upon it, even though it's his own score.
Sure.
He still takes it and improves upon it. Comes up with new themes, like the Buckbeaks theme when they're flying through the air. And still makes it darker yet more beautiful at the same time.
Yeah.
Like the drums come in, which then again in the next round, can't remember who took over in number 4 from a composer standpoint. He takes that from these like big drum themes or whatever, and it turns into the Durmstrang. Sort of like it's this transition over there. Not on purpose, they didn't know, but that's how good Williams is he has this. Now he comes in with all these different themes. And then the rest of them just pull off of that.
That's great.
Like it's just such a good job. One last thing I'll say, because I forgot to mention with Quran, it is very James Cameron like of what he did here. You mentioned T2 and then Aliens to take an established
franchise
or established movie.
Yeah,
arguably classics in a lot of ways that people love, to take it in a wholly new direction. Now, granted, he did not write this, but just from a direction standpoint, it is very Cameron-esque. It's very much, we're going to take this and we're going to go in a direction that you didn't see it coming. Aliens, very different.
Absolutely.
T2, T1, very different. And it's very like that to me.
That's a fantastic comparison in terms of that shift, where it's reverential to what came before, but we're going to I'm going to
bring my style here.
Yep.
And he lightens his style. He doesn't even take as much of his sort of quirky style that he had somewhat before that independent film. He even lightens himself up, but brings that to this movie. It's very different feel.
That is true. One of those, feels is, I think the Dementors.
Yeah.
Having read the book again after the fact, so you're kind of painted into what the movie shows you, so I know my imagination was kind of tied to it. It's well and good in the stories, but they are an incredible execution of a thought into what would that look like to have these type of ethereal creatures who are soul suckers, that when they're introduced and then later and then introduced or brought back in and everything, to the point where when it's that final battle sequence of sorts, protecting serious. Like they are just so terrifying. And
They really are. I mean,
dominating in what they can do. And I think that is, I don't know how they did it with clearly some stuff in water to have those kind of robes flowing about, but they are awful in how great they are. So that's what I think when we lamented some of the CGI in the first movie with like the troll, and I do remember the big serpent in the second being like, man, this does not work. This was, again, a game
spiders
changer.
weren't that great in the second.
Yeah, true. Yes, exactly. The spiders were not good.
Same time as Shelob. And we're like, okay.
Yeah, not good.
Okay.
This, with what they do with the Dementors, is, again, from a massive step forward.
Yep.
That it feels like, oh, it's grounded, but these things are like formidable, which is so great.
Yeah, and it frustrates me looking back on it that Spider-Man 2 wins visual effects that year over Harry Potter.
Agreed.
You know, iRobot was up that year as well, which is good. Actually, Matt and I rewatched that recently, and he did not like it.
Really?
No, he was bored the whole way through.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, it's probably more of an adult movie anyway.
Yeah.
But anyway, those visual effects have dated a little bit. They're still good, and Spider-Man 2 has good visual effects. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But if ever there was a movie in the Harry Potter franchise that could have won an Oscar,
yes,
it would have been this one, because that was the only 3 up for visual effects that year. Lord of the Rings had just ended. Like, there was no,
This should have absolutely won.
Right, over those other 2.
Yes.
Like, bro, really?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is still now outstanding.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, that's where I was like, okay, visual effects, come on now.
And, like, what's really cool is, aside from I don't like the Quidditch stuff in any way. I don't find them to add anything to any of the movies. I might get past this. But in that sequence where he's...
It was 150 points for the snitch. Why even bother with the quaffle?
Exactly. God dang it. Listen, you're hitting the nail on the head. But when he passes by one of the Dementors and you can see its mouth.
Yeah.
And it looks just awful.
Yeah.
It's that tiny detail. It's not just like, oh, these are these creatures like behind these, robes or whatever. No, there's something under there of weight and substance. So
yeah,
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, again, Quidditch sucks.
I have a couple more things probably, but number one is looking back on it, I'm always like, and I know they're kids. When you go back in time, why wouldn't you just go stand and wait for Peter Pettigrew to drop back as a rat, and he runs off into the weeds? You know where he was going.
Yes.
Just catch him. You don't even have to. You literally don't have to get involved at all.
No.
Except for howling to get him away. So maybe Hermione didn't realize that, and I get that. But, dude, it's right there.
Yeah.
It's right there. Anyway.
Yeah.
But no, the one thing I want to mention, and I honestly can't remember if I mentioned this in the first one, but I stand by this, and I will until the day I die. We need a series of books or TV shows or movies about the pre-Harry Potter stuff.
Yes.
I want to know everything there is to know about James and Lily Potter.
Yes.
And this like resistance that they have going, the history of all these characters, they're all intertwined.
Yes.
I want to know everything about it. Yep. It is, and they're rebooting, as a HBO or Warner Brothers TV series, the Harry Potter series, and that's all well and good if they want to do that as an actual Harry Potter TV series. Fine.
From the books?
Yeah. They're redoing that.
What? Okay.
But again, there's a lot of things they didn't cover. You can certainly do that. You definitely can use some more equality in this series. And that's fine.
Very true.
If you want to do that, that's great. But we need prequels. We have to see the rise of Voldemort and to the day that, like, you could get 5 seasons out of that, 3 books. I don't even care. I need it. Every time I watch one of these movies, I'm like, I want that.
Well, you think about,
I know J.K. Rowling listens to us, so write it.
Exactly. And maybe lay off the trans people.
Yeah, also give me some money. Other than that, right.
I think we, love our Star Wars, brief tangent. But yes, from a prequel, like generational aspects to it, you can expand, you can develop some better, some worse. But I think of something like a Rogue One, where you can add the weight of this battle to
and
come.
We do the ending.
Exactly. And you can have it be, they're going to die. I I just think that's fantastic to think about. And that to that point, I think that's one of the best parts of this story, where it is pre-Voldemort, where it seems like, oh, it's just about Sirius Black. But once you understand him and then Lupin and, or is it Lupus? Lupin. No, lupus is the disease.
Yes.
Yeah. I guess he has a disease too, but
your
different.
brain is not braining tonight.
Yeah. So
yeah.
he, and then being friends with his parents or Harry's parents.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you get
there's
hints
all kinds
later.
Of betrayal. You already know.
Yes.
Like, yeah, you would have all this like built-in knowledge already, but then you can go in so many places.
You can flesh out like the Peter Pettigrew.
Yep. And it can be an adult book. She's writing adult books. It doesn't have to be kids' books.
Like like this wishing for this like, aspirational thing with, I like that idea.
Oh man.
And that's why I think what is really great about this film, what always stood out to me was, it was the first shift, thankfully, from, oh, we have a new defense against the dark arts teacher.
Yes, absolutely.
And he's a bad guy. God, wah. Oh, wait.
Yeah.
That's what I loved about this.
It's not the first shift. It's pretty much the only, by the way. He's the only defense against the dark arts who doesn't turn out to be the bad guy in the end of the book.
I mean...
No, you got Moody. And then
Snape?
Snape still...
Book specific. I'll give you that. Book specific. I'll give you that. Yes.
And 7 doesn't count because they're not there anymore.
They don't have that.
I'm just saying, he's actually the
and
only...
Moody. That's true. I'll give you that. Yeah.
Is obviously bad from the beginning.
She's terrible.
So...
But, no, that's a really good point. And that's what I love about this, where I do remember actually in the theater being like, oh, God.
Here we go
This
again.
is the freaking trope.
Yep.
Here we go. But it's like, oh, no. Wait a second.
Yeah, she played again, like, give her credit.
Yes.
She plays against her own types in a lot of ways.
She leaned into what the expectations were, and having it be, again, now what the villain was the entire time is now somewhat a hero.
Yeah.
Where he was, framed for the murders and these kind of things. I love that third act completely.
Yeah.
Both the twists in the Shrieking Shack.
Yeah, like somehow that third act is like half the movie.
It is. Also, I'm like, it's like,
a long
this is
way.
happening. We have an hour left.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep.
And then that and the time turner stuff elevates the material.
Well done. Yeah, all that stuff.
And how they execute on these little hints of things, and then they play it back through and see it. But again, my favorite tiny detail of the time turner is when Hermione goes, is that what my hair looks like from the back?
Yeah.
It's those details that, again, come out so well.
My quibble with the time turner is that the times that they have to write it in, like, where did she come from? How have you been here? I don't like that, because that means she's either appearing at the wrong time. Because the point of going back, like,
as I'm not
if
being
she does
seen.
it right, she should go back and then just walk in with them. And so all of a sudden Ron's like, where did you should come from? I'm like, well, then you're not time turning enough here. Like, we need another quarter turn or something. I get it from a writing standpoint. You have to do it.
You have to hint to the audience.
Right. I get it. But yeah. I have a hot shot, but I don't know about... I have a possible hot shot. Do you have any other thoughts?
Final thing I'm going to say is I love me some Gary Oldman.
Totally.
Especially this time in his career.
Perfect.
Where he shifts from always being that kind of villain or antagonist or kind of brooding bad guy of sorts, where, again, perfect casting.
Yep.
Where you put him in this and it's like, oh shit, he's the good guy.
Yeah.
And then you have Batman Begins the year after, where it's like, oh, he's Jim Gordon. And then I feel like his career shifted.
Totally.
Where it was like, oh no, he can actually be like a really great, honorable individual.
Yeah.
But he's so good in this.
Imagine being a casting director and you lose Richard Harris.
Yes.
In a principal character between films, and your next film you get Gary Oldman and Emma Thompson to join your cast. Oh, and Michael Gambon.
Oh, yeah.
And like just imagine. I mean, I know, and these people didn't read it. Like, they didn't read the books. Michael Gambon didn't read it. Emma Thompson, they famously are just like, my kids wanted me to do this. They just said, do it.
Dad. Oh my God.
Right. It's not that people were lining up to do, but they made the ask, and then it's like, yeah, sure. Okay. I guess Gary Oldman too, he had heard that Daniel Radcliffe loved music, so on his first day of meeting him, he presented him with a bass guitar. Like,
wow.
I know. I'm like, what a class dude. Plus, I told you they just seem funny. I told the story about the outtake. And,
yes.
If you haven't seen it, go look at the fart outtake of Harry Potter 3.
That's so great.
I don't have a hot shot. I think it might be.
You're American. Yes, from America.
It's back to John Williams, so maybe a hot shot. As we already talked about, we love our John Williams here on 20/4, and he is absolutely the greatest ever, undoubtedly. There's not a question about that.
No.
But, Tim, is this the last great John Williams score?
Ooh.
Great. He's had, don't get me wrong, I like Lincoln. I like The Post. I like these movies. I even like what he did on The Fabelmans for 10 minutes. And I really like the Indiana Jones scores, but they're not great. They're not all-time great scores. The year after this, he does Revenge of the Sith, Memoirs of a Geisha, which is a good score.
That's a good score.
Munich and War of the Worlds. They're all solid scores. Memoirs of Geisha is a good score, but is this the last great John Williams score we will ever get? 20 years.
Man. Because I think of...
Do you want it's a long list.
No, it's a massive list, but I think of Warhorse came out. And it was
Warhorse is a good... they're good scores. Tintin is a good score.
Yeah.
Like they're all good. It's John Williams. You know what I mean? Like
Force Awakens.
Yeah, but again, play on its own,
It's kind of like your own sandbox. You've already made...
I think this
I'd
is
give you
the
that.
last.
Yeah.
Memoirs of Geisha, you could fight me for that one.
Because
it's very different, different feel. It's a great score, but nobody's talking about Memoirs of Geisha scored 20 years later.
No.
There's not.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So I'm not prepared to fight for it. But I sat there thinking, is this movie 20 years ago the last great John Williams score we'll ever hear?
And there's so much, variety in this one, like you mentioned before.
Yeah, and it ties into future ones because those composers grab, and he does a good job of tying into his old stuff.
Yeah.
Like he hints at other things, and yeah,
that's good. I like that.
I'm going up there. I'm going to try it. I'm going to let the jury decide.
As we close out our spotlight segment, we come to our final takes called The Verdict.
If we are to have faith and justice, we need only to believe in ourselves.
This is where Tim and I give our final verdicts after rewatching the film and decide whether or not the movie held up over the course of 2 decades.
Now you get out of here before I call a bailiff and have you thrown in jail.
This is The Verdict.
I said to hell with it, to hell with it.
Do you want to go first?
I'll do it.
All right.
So, a dramatic step forward in the Harry Potter franchise, someone like I mentioned before. Prisoner of Azkaban expands the world, the story weight, and actually creates a sense of peril for our heroes that before this felt like, meh, they'll be fine, even though the books come after. With a respectful yet bold new vision from director Cuarón, everything about the film improves upon the first 2, including a really compelling villain turned ally, and a new teacher who, again, is thankfully not a villain. It's a very grown-up feel that elevates the material without it feeling like now we're moving into our end game focus of Voldemort and anything around that, which are great unto itself. The 3 main actors are finally coming into their roles in such a great way. We actually kind of, as I mentioned this, we didn't really talk about it in the segment. Yeah. They've actually started to develop into really great actors, and it really pays off in movies thereafter. 4 out of 5 for me, maybe 4.25.
Yeah,
for the genre unto itself. But if I rate it from a Harry Potter scale, 5 out of 5.
Sure.
So, how about you?
Yeah, Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban is proof of what we have known for years before. If you have a kids movie, you can still tell an adult story.
Mm-hmm.
Director Alfonso Cuarón takes an established film and takes it to the next level, a la James Cameron, or with T2 or Aliens, by not only putting his style on it, but also by treating the audience like grown-ups. Similar to the books that grew with the fans, the movie does the same. It expects an older audience to come with it. Huge strides are made by Radcliffe from the previous films, and all other performers are at their best, or are at some of their best. With yet another amazing score from John Williams and everyone else at the top of their game, especially production design. Also, shout out there, and visual effects. Harry Potter 3, we'll call it HP 3, still stands as a classic film, in particular in the genre and in this series.
Mm-hmm.
Holds up and then some. I have 4.5 out of 5, regardless of Again, for what it is. I'm rating it off for what it is. I'm not comparing it to $1 Million Baby at the end of this year. But,
no.
4.5 out of 5.
Nice.
Come on, not my beer.
With our reactions and verdicts to the movie out of the way, we move on to the reactions to our beers that we drank while rewatching our subject movie.
And if you want to have sex with a disgusting bad brewer with a terrible attitude,
this is where we take a look back at our beers and give our expert ratings for our drinking buddies.
ugh, whatever. Hey, here's the truth.
This is Drinking Buddies.
Let's get weird.
I've got a few theme options tonight, but
Sure.
one
At least the theme wasn't garbage. Like, at least the movie was good, and you were like, if we had a garbage movie and you're like, hey, I'm getting garbage beers for tonight, maybe that was the theme.
Spoiler
alert for Steve's ratings.
There was a bit of a disappointment to some
Anyway.
of them. So Alfonso Cuarón, the director, is from Mexico.
That is correct.
And there is a cerveceria that's opened in Minneapolis quite some time, but
oh yeah,
I have not been there.
I'd say it's a cool space. They have a little indoor soccer place. Like they have
You mean football?
Sure. And good food. They have a Mexican restaurant in there too. Yeah, it's actually a cute little space.
Cool. Yep. Well, I got from them their La Doña Fria Mexican Lager.
Yep.
But Vienna Lager with flight maize and subtle corn flavor. It was a 3.5 for me. It's a solid style. Lagers are lagers.
Yep.
It's hard to mess it up or really make it amazing. I did find it had a bit more bite to it than a regular lager, which I liked. But no, it was pretty good.
Yep, 3.5 out of 5 for me. I've had it before. I don't know if you had it before.
No, I've never had it.
Yeah, it's very basic lager, but there is some extra flavor to it. But it's also really crushable. Like you can really it's very good. Especially my rating almost went up as the night went on. Not this one being exclusive.
Then we had Prize Brewing out of Minneapolis, their Royal Peach Sour Ale. It was a 3.25
really
for me.
Wow.
In as much as sours
going back to the tall boys
in a tall boy. I had to dump it.
This one. Yep.
But I found it's a really great solid base.
Yeah.
Like for a sour, you could have it just without a flavor. It'd be great.
Yeah.
My feeling is that the peach was a nice subtle. It was good flavor, like a smell. Yeah. The flavor was good. It seems like one of those like rinse and repeat, add a flavor additive to it, and some maybe are better or worse. It was fine for me. I don't know that I need to seek it out again. I love peach beers if they're done well, like Tree Shaker of Odell. God, if only. It was fine.
Well, it is. The Royal Raspberry is the same. I'm assuming the same base and stuff.
It's got to be.
Yeah, and that kind of stuff. I have 3.75 out of 5. I like this. Peach is my favorite flavor for the most part when it comes to sours.
Yeah,
and in general, it is tart though. There is a lot to it that I the heartburn was up anyway for me tonight. So then add a tart peach sour to it. But I think it's solid.
Then, out of Minneapolis, I found a new one. I was like, I'm going to try and see something that I haven't seen before. And sometimes the risk pays off.
Totally.
And then others, it doesn't.
Totally.
Padraig's Brewing. Padraig's, thank you. Which I had to Google because I'm like, what the hell is this? This is in the old 612.
Yep.
Which claims to have sold the company and got different brewers in. I beg to differ.
Because
this is their Basic Instinct West Coast IPA.
Yeah.
And I gave it a 2. It was boring as all hell. No bite for a West Coast IPA. And I bet you, I don't know. I was just like, oh man, they probably just took the same beer, slapped a different package on it, and said, it's a different company. Total bullshit.
Yeah, it's the same previous company who willingly sold bad beer to avoid dumping it.
I was like, maybe it's worth the risk. Nope, hard pass forever.
Yeah, I'm done with it. I started with a 2.5 and then it went up to a 3 because of the next beer. And I will say this, if it were a new, if without the 612 connection, and and it were a brand new brewery, neighborhood brewing, like if we had gone to Wooden Ship and they had this, I probably could have finished it. It would have been fine.
Yep.
And I was like, okay, it wasn't bad from a quality standpoint. There was nothing to it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? I went to a 3. I had started at 2.5 and it kind of kept creeping up. But even then I didn't finish it. Like I wasn't going to waste.
Yeah. You're like,
wasn't going to waste the heartburn on it. I was like, yeah, let's move on.
Yeah. And maybe there was a psychosomatic element to it.
There is some of that. Yeah. Yep. I've been avoiding it for that long, simply for that reason.
And I will continue to avoid
Yeah, I'm done with it. I'm not going to go there. That's for sure.
And then another theme option from Fair State Brewing out of North Minneapolis. What's the serious character's last name? Oh, that's right. Black. Their Eternal Shrug Black IPA, which I've had previous years. And I was like, ooh, I saw on the shelves. I'm like, man, let's give it a shot.
You've had this before and bought it again?
I did.
Oh, okay.
I must say, much like some of the stuff that's like maybe a different cycle or whatever, a different version, previous iterations have been better.
Okay. All right.
And
I'll give you that.
That's so it was a 3.25 for me. I find it to be, again, I had hopeful thoughts. I'm like, ooh, here we go. And I will not finish yours because you're not finishing yours. But no, it's one that maybe hopefully they get right the next time.
Yeah, I feel like whenever they put the smoke in this black IPA, somebody sneezed and then they just dumped all the liquid smoke in it. Like I say, it wasn't poorly made. It's a fine base. So I have 2.5 out of 5. This very well might be on the worst beers of the list. If that, like I hope it is. I hope it's on the worst beers because then it's been a better year.
Sure.
You know, I can't stand it. I took a couple of drinks of it and I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It's just not good at all.
Too bad.
Yeah.
The exciting quiz program 21.
Our final segment of the episode is Quiz Show.
I have stood on the shoulders of life, and I've never gotten down into the dirt to build.
Where in our research for our subject film, we find some interesting trivia nuggets that we hope will stump the other and possibly intrigue you.
This is not McCarthyism. We're not here to expose for the sake of exposure.
This is Quiz Show.
Well, evidently certain of the contestants were given the answers in advance.
Cheating on a quiz show. It's like plagiarizing a comic strip.
I have a couple. What do I end up with? I added one during the movie, so I have 3.
Ooh, me too.
Look at you. I'll give you an easy one to start.
Oh, goodness. All right.
Alfonso Cuarón is the first director born in Mexico to take home the Best Director Oscar at the Academy Awards for Gravity in 2013.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly, over the course of the 5 years after that, the awards would go to a Mexican director 4 out of 5 times, with Damien Chazelle being the outlier. Cuarón won in 2018. Can you name the other 2?
Well, I know it's Guillermo del Toro.
Yep.
And God dang it, I can... The Revenant.
Yep.
And the Birdman movie.
Back-to-back years. Yeah, 2014, 2015.
I cannot think of his name.
Iñárritu? I can't remember the beginning of it. I actually just wrote
Yeah, dang it.
I just wrote the last name.
Yes. And apparently it's a tactic or a good training, whatever they're doing in Mexico.
Alejandro
Iñárritu,
yes.
to be like, hey, can you really do great long tracking shots?
Yes.
Because they seem to really, both of them. I mean, not Del Toro.
Yeah.
Well,
he's done some, but it's really Iñárritu and Cuarón.
And Cuarón, who are like, we're going to have like 15-minute long, which actually I did mention before, but this was like, it was starting to.
Children of Men. Yeah.
Like, oh, that's 2 more years.
Yeah.
But that's like another thing that stood out in this movie was, he's starting to do the long shots.
Yeah.
I can see him like really one take.
Mentioned that.
Mentioned before, Emma Thompson.
Mm-hmm. Dame Emma Thompson.
Correct. Forgive me. Discussed before in our glowing review of Love Actually.
Yep.
Was not the original actress offered the role of divination professor Trelawney. The actress originally offered the role declined due to her personal experience at British boarding schools and how much she hated such a lonely and isolating place and did not like that the Harry Potter films were glorifying such an awful experience. 2008 Oscar-winning supporting actress was originally offered the role?
Tilda Swinton.
Nice. Is that one of yours?
Yeah. It is.
Yeah, you look so like...
Yeah, I'm just going to let him finish. We have very
one.
Similar wordings, too. So
Nice.
wherever we found that, yeah.
That's great. Even though I love Emma Thompson in this.
I think Tilda Swinton still would have been good in that role.
It would have
kind of
been
that quirky
really
role.
Much more
Either way.
off-putting, I think, for the divination aspect of it. But
Yeah. Either way, I think it's good.
It's good. All right, nice work.
There we go.
All right.
So I might need a visual here because it took me a while to figure out who he was as I was watching. So, okay. So this movie is one of the few that does not feature Crabbe and Goyle as Malfoy's buddies.
Yeah.
It has Goyle.
Yes.
They have Goyle, and then they have the other kid. So the other kid is credited as Slytherin boy because he looked familiar to me.
Yeah.
So he is played by Bronson Webb, who would have roles in Kingdom of Heaven, small role in The Dark Knight, and be in the Game of Thrones.
Mm-hmm.
Over the years since then, he's actually more known to us as a series regular as Jeremy, one of a trio of men in a pub in what modern masterpiece of a comedy?
Dude, that's where it is.
Yep.
Thank you, Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do I know this kid?
Yeah, I wasn't going to give you the clue.
Yes.
But I was like, yeah, I'd show you a picture of him, then I'd be like, okay.
Because I was watching it tonight and be like, what the hell is he from?
I know. Yeah. And he's very.
Yes, he absolutely is.
Yep.
That's so great. He's like the nicest one. That's so great. Oh, good.
Oh, no, the black guy is the one who's more like, I mean, they're all nice, but yeah. Yeah, he's the one who.
That's so great. That's so good. True. Director Alfonso Cuarón is, as we mentioned, very well respected in Hollywood for his visionary work in different styles, winning Best Directors for Gravity and I think masterpiece.
Yeah,
Roma.
You love it.
But for what 1995 film did he have his directorial debut?
Cuarón. I don't know.
A Little Princess.
Oh, sure.
Which I'm confident I have never seen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right.
And he did Great Expectations.
Yeah.
Which I had no idea about until researching this week.
Huh.
I was like, oh, you know.
Well, there we go.
It's a fine one, but okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
The film's tagline, Something Wicked This Way Comes, which they use in this, and music used during the choir scene includes the lyrics of Double, Double, Toil and Trouble.
You would ask me this.
They were pulled from what prophecy-laden play by William Shakespeare?
I knew it's a Shakespeare play,
Uh-huh.
but now I got to think of which.
Because Harry Potter's got some prophecy stuff.
Is it Macbeth?
It is.
Yeah. Okay.
Nice
All right.
job.
It's like, okay. Okay, there we go.
Nice work.
There we go. Whew. Good. All right, well, that brings us to the end of our episode. Be sure to find all of our previous episodes on your favorite streaming platforms. And watch out for upcoming episodes on The Notebook, and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Find us on the web via the metaverse of Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, and head to 20years4beers.com for more. We want to say thank you for taking the time to listen and for clicking that like or subscribe button on your devices. This has been 20 Years 4 Beers. My name is Steve.
I'm Tim.
And thanks for listening.
Thanks. Like LARP Quidditch.
Yeah.
I love me. Football.
Sure. And you've had this before and bought it again?
Dude, that's where it is.
Yep.
Slapped a different package on it and said, it's a different company. Total bullshit.
Cut!